All right, welcome everybody. I'm Vince Duvall with Eagle Homes, powered by eXp Realty. This week I'm here with Mr.
BRRRR.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Vince has been,
I don't know where I was. Oh, I had a cast issue, and then I had a camping issue, and
why are you listing these as all issues? Camping should not be an issue. I mean, it's excessive, but I mean,
so true.
Sorry, Amy.
No, it's not. So this week we are going to tackle something I'm kind of excited about. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really excited about it. So I truly think we're gonna do a 3-part series.
Is it chili?
Chili?
Play on your little acronym.
Yeah. We're gonna do a 3-part series on investing in real estate, from anywhere from flipping, fix and flips to the BRRRR method to house hacking. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything. This week, we're going to talk about the BRRRR method. So for those that don't, Brad, what's the BRRRR method?
Well, it's BRRRR, BRRRR. There's a lot of R's there. It's basically it's buy is the B, rehab, rent, refinance, and of course repeat. So you could probably, we'll get into this of course, but first of all, I guess, who would you consider as a real estate investor? I'm just going to answer for you. It is, to me, it's anybody that owns real estate.
That's true.
Potentially be a real, even if it's your primary home, you are in fact investing in real estate. Now, I would say there's always different things you want to look at, and this is specifically what investors look at is 3 potential exit strategies, which I'm sure we'll get into through this BRRRR method. So, but that's essentially what the BRRRR method is, and we're going to go through that today. Right now. So,
yeah. So let's start with the B, buy.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard mixed feelings on this, and I'm a little more aggressive on my numbers, or a little more conservative, I guess you could say. But research says you want to get a house for 70% less than after repaired value. So after the house is repaired and you get it back on markets, or you hold it, whatever it might be, what's that value look like to somebody? So I say 70%. So if we had a $300,000 house, Brad, well, how much if we're getting it for 70%? Well, let's say it's after a market value of 300,000. What should we be buying that house for?
No more than 210,000.
Okay,
would be and that's. And I know we'll get into this more in part under the next R, which is the rehab, but
yep,
that's got to include your all-in number.
All in, yes, and I think the all-in number, a lot of people forget about, just the small things. We'll talk about that. But when you are buying a house, there's different ways of buying the house, maybe a single family or multifamily. But let me ask you, Brad, how do you feel about that 70% number? I know you've got some investors you work with out there. How do you feel about that 70% number?
I think it varies, and I'll explain it this way.
Yep.
If you're a very, like, if that's your business, if you're a real estate where that is your business, because if you're looking at 300,000, obviously minus the all-in cost of the 210, it's a $90,000 profit, right? 30%. I mean, many regular businesses would kill for a 30% profit margin, right?
Right.
So on one project, that can be high if you're a regular investor. I mean, what I mean is a regular investor is there are investors out there, or real estate companies essentially at this point, that they'll buy, fix and flip, 50, 100 plus properties a year. They're not looking for those margins.
Correct.
I mean, they're going to have their home runs. They're going to make them 100 plus grand. They're going to have their really good ones that are making them. Usually I've taken several investor seminars in my career, and the number 30, it's not a really percentage thing, it's a number like 30,000. Because for the real estate investor, it's a business. They're not the ones out there hitting the hammer, turning the screws, doing all the physical work. It's a business at that point. So they're more of like that CEO of
right,
like a corporation. It's a numbers thing. It's theirs is all time, meetings, planning, projections, all that kind of stuff.
They're looking for quantity.
They're looking at the quantity. If they made 30 grand on a 210 all in, which would be 240. And then what's that? I don't know what that is.
He's doing some quick math, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
It's Monday. So that's only a 14% return, but that's fine.
Right.
The reason they shoot for that 30% number is it's just, and I ran into this when I've flipped houses.
I know where you're going with this.
Well, there's two things. There's the unexpected that you can't control.
Unforeseen
And I
costs.
had one where basically the wall, and the inspector wouldn't have found this, so I can't blame the inspector. The wall was done very badly. Basically, they pulled the drywall off and they literally could have pushed the exterior wall.
Oh, geez.
So there was some structural thing there. That was unknown, uncontrollable, that, you know, I know by no means did I do it myself.
Right.
Then there's what I call is the case of the might as wells. And this is where I think if you're a real estate investor, I think even if you're a homeowner that's getting ready to sell, you have to be very careful of, well, I might as well do this, I might as well do that.
Yep.
Because it looks nice, but you always have to be thinking, whether you're a real estate investor where it's you know from day one, it's a buy, fix, sell it, or it's a single family home and you've been in it for 5 years and you're getting ready to sell it. A lot of times right now, you think a kitchen remodel is going to get you this upwards return. There's sometimes only get you 70% of what you put into it.
Yeah.
So you could go to loss there. So you got to be careful with that kind of number.
Well,
Yeah.
that, and, you know, might as well, it starts off, we plan on might as well for mica countertops. Well, you know, might as well spend the extra $2,000 and do Corian. A great example, friends of ours budgeted for a $20,000 bathroom remodel, talking to them, and they spent $30,000. That is a 50% increase over what they expected.
Now, I will tell you now, and that's why I said, if you're getting ready to sell, you really have to have that mindset. If you're going to keep the house for another 5 years, you're just doing it for you.
Right.
That's fine. That stuff's for you.
Right.
Right. And that stuff's going to get washed out in the next 5 to 10 years, whenever you actually do sell it, because you knew all along that was not for you.
Yeah.
Or that was just for you. It's not an impact of value. It's like, this is what I want my home. I'm going to do it. I don't care. That's fine. I think everybody that with their own home,
they do that. Yeah.
You know, I already got some thoughts for my own home that I'm going to do, and it's not going to increase value, but it's just, I'm a picky bastard in certain situations.
And he's putting a golf simulator in. We won't tell his wife.
She already knows.
All right. So moving on, when buying that first house or that investment property, there's different ways to go about it. One is, you know, your typical bank lending. When you're doing bank lending as an investment property, the one thing I take in consideration is you typically need more money down. It's typically 25% down. There are some out there that you can get for 20% down, but it's typically 99.9% of the time it's 25% down. For that. So you keep that in mind, that's a huge upfront cost on a $200,000 house. You got to put down $50,000. And then there's hard money lenders and private money lenders. Hard money lenders, you know, you're borrowing the money for a shorter period of time, right? Maybe a little higher interest rate, but less money down. And then private money is your rich bastard that needs to put their money somewhere so they get some type of return on it because they can't hide it in their pillowcase any longer. That, you know, is willing to work with you. So it's about creating those relationships. So if you're getting into this and you're thinking about doing it, have those ducks lined up, because nothing's worse than starting to hunt for a house and then realize you don't have those ducks lined up. So that's the first duck.
You know, do you know the main difference between a hard money lender and a private money lender in most cases? I'm not saying all, in most cases.
No, I could take stabs at the dark, but I might as well just keep going.
Well, the hard money lender they're not a bank. But again, kind of like the professional home flipper, this is what they do. Like, so they are essentially a professional lender. They've got systems set up to lend. Your private money lender could be or could not. The other thing is how interest is handled and payments are handled. So both, by the way, will do just like a regular mortgage. They'll set up your monthly payment, aka your mortgage payment, as typically most of them will do the 30-year amortization. So you're going to be doing that calculation, whatever your principal interest is, based on that calculation will be amortized if you're going to pay this over 30 years. You can do 20 years too, but most people just do it 30 because it keeps the payment lower. Hard money lenders you'll be paying interest only.
Right.
It means if you borrowed 100,000, you're going to pay back 100,000.
Yeah.
their profits are being paid monthly in the form of a interest only payment. So whatever the interest portion is, that's gonna be your payment. Your principal does not go down. That's fine. Private money lenders will typically also amortize it over like that 30 years or 20 years, whatever you want to set up. But you'll be making principal and interest payments, meaning it won't be long, because if you hold it for six months, you won't have paid down that much. So your
right.
principal won't be much less, but you are at least paying your interest. So some private money lenders do the interest only as well. I mean, it's a vary, but that's typically the difference. Just in general, if you're doing a hard money or private money lender, things you want to look at. And people think, well, geez, why? Well, they're a business. They're going to make a profit.
Yeah.
That's okay. Your goal is to make a profit. You calculate that into your all in.
Right.
So if you ever watch those shows, I actually like what's his name? The guy, husband and wife used to do it. I can't remember. Tarek Musa.
Oh, yeah.
I actually like it. He does a good job explaining it. He always breaks the numbers down.
Yep.
And he goes a little bit deep into it, but you always see, what they purchased it, their repair costs, and then he's got the holding costs, and then he's got his selling costs. That's your commissions, all your regular stuff, your transfer tax, your prorated taxes and all that stuff. But your holding costs your taxes are actually, you should calculate your holding costs, but he's got those holding costs calculated, and that's what those are.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of it's your interest only payment if you're using a hard money lender, or if you're using a private money lender, even if it's principal and interest, that's your holding cost.
Right.
What are your utilities while you're carrying it? Those are all things when you go to buy, you need to calculate. Now, obviously, we'll get into the rehab costs in a second, but the holding costs, as far as that's part of the buy process, is something you really want to make sure you calculate. Because I can tell you, even with the surprises, even if I've had some of those, might as well, and I've done on investment properties, just because there is a portion where you just want to put a good product out there.
Right.
This may not give me more profits, but if everybody comes across the property that I flip again, they're like, you know what? That guy does a good product.
That's good work. Yep.
Regardless of that, you make money on investment properties, flip properties when you buy.
Yeah.
If you buy it right, there's a really good chance you're going to make money when you go to sell.
Correct.
And I can tell you that the one I lost a good amount of money on, I bought it wrong. I should have held to my guns. Purchase price was 15,000 more than I really wanted to go. But I really wanted to get. I didn't have a project going. I just wanted to get one going.
Number one mistake, folks.
I just want to get one going. So I'm like, yeah, I think I'll be all right. That was one of the few mistakes. Now granted, if we would have made that up, I could have at least broke even. I actually ended up losing about 15,000 on it.
Yeah.
What it lost. So even if all the other mistakes, like I said, 15,000 at least would have broke even.
Right. And let's talk about that for a minute. I think that is for investors that are just starting to get into this. They invest a lot of time looking for homes, researching homes, sending them to an agent to run comps. They get emotionally attached to the process that they just want to get in a house. They just want to start that project. That is the first mistake. You get emotionally attached. You have a number in your head. Your agent says, hey, we could potentially sell this at this number, right? When it's all said and done, and you calculate your cost out, your rehab cost, your holding cost, all that good tax, title, insurance, all those things. And you're like, there's might be a little bit more room for margin. And you decide to go up on what you feel is what you know is that number, and it gets you in trouble. So keep the emotion out there. And remember, this is treat this like it's a business.
Now, as an agent, I can tell you, I love working with investor clients I've worked with before, and then I get to know what their finished product looks like. Because for an agent, I think important for us to make sure we do a good justice to our client is understand how to calculate that after repair value.
Right. What's
this going to look like when it's ready to put back in the market to get that 300,000 that you referenced? And I think my two investor clients I work with the most, and one of them hasn't bought a house by the way, we talk about buying right. One of them hasn't bought a house in a year and a half, maybe even close to 2 years now. Yeah. the numbers aren't there.
Right.
And they are just very consistent with their criteria. You know, and the other one is too, they just, luckily we've found something that's worked for them in the last year. But, you know, these are people that normally would do 2, 3, 4, they're not the big time guys that do whatever, but they'll do 2, 3, or 4 a year. Haven't bought 1.5 years, 2 years.
Yeah.
And
You know, I have a feeling we're not going to get through the whole BRRRR method today. So let's jump into rehab cost. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think we can get through rehab and maybe the rental process. So that next week we can kind of carry
you know
through.
what, summarize the buy, just call us. We know how to calculate after repair value. We know how to do it. This is why I'm just gonna throw this out there because I understand for sell by owner for certain people, investors that never make sense. If you look at any of those big time investors on TV,
Right.
they all use real estate agents. Now, some of them have real estate companies now, so they're in-house. But they all use real estate agents because they understand that value of what a realtor does.
Right.
They let you do your job. It's compartmentalized. So, all right, yeah, but you're right. We're gonna
No.
take through all this.
This
This won't be a 3-part series. It's gonna be a 5, 6.
Which is awesome. I love it. I love it. We'll have a 5-part series on investing and,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of fun to talk about. I think both Brad and I really enjoy the process, how, you know, before, afters, you know, everything it takes to get into this. But rehab costs, Brad, let me ask you this. What are some of the things investors typically forget in rehab cost? And then we'll go into holding cost next.
Labor.
I
Honestly, they forget labor.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta remember, you gotta make sure you're, and what I mean by this is you gotta be clear with your contractor. I made the mistake with a contractor one time. I said, all right, what's a new kitchen gonna run? Well, he just gave me material.
Right.
He didn't really give me his full bid. And luckily when I heard the number, I'm like, oh, wow, that's awesome. And then he says, well, then, you know, all in. I'm like, what were you missing? He's like, well, the labor part. So then I'm always making sure I ask, all right, okay, now I don't care about the materials because I'm not doing this, you are.
Right.
So what's this going to cost me all in?
Right.
It's funny, but it depends on the contract. No, some just say it.
No, let's talk about that for a minute,
Okay.
because a lot of investors will go, well, I know, especially first time investors, they go, well, I know I did flooring in my house and I installed it, or I know I painted the inside of my house and I did it and it cost us, you know, about $2,000 in paint, you know,
Yeah.
between doing the trim, the brushes, everything like that. And then I go to them, I go, are you painting the house or are you paying somebody to do it? They're going, no, we're gonna hire it out. Okay, well, now what are we talking about labor? Because it's not $2,000 just to paint this.
It's funny, that's just forgotten. That's probably honestly the number one forgotten thing is the labor. And then in regards to contractors, and I will not use a contractor anymore that's just bills on time, because it'll always take them longer.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
It's only go bids.
Yep.
No, what is the,
What's it gonna take
you're
to do
gonna
this
remodel
project?
you're gonna remodel this kitchen, what's the bid?
Yep.
What's all in, what is the bid? That's the number. And the only thing that should change that then is if you change materials, that's on you. That's a change, that's worthy of a change order. So when contractors do bids, there's change orders. Or in the case of a wall that falls down, the unexpected,
Right.
that's going to increase their labor. Otherwise, this holds them accountable to if they make a mistake, if they're slower than they should be. Well, that's on them because time is money.
It lights a fire under their ass to get it done.
It lights a fire under their ass to get it done.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, and so the other thing I think is missed a lot of times is the little nuances, such as, oh, we're going to hang new doors, but we need the hardware to hang the door. We need the door handle. And all of a sudden, you're hanging 8 doors and you need 8 sets of hinges, 8 door handles, and you just added another $1,000.
Fixtures in general.
Yeah.
Something that I know early on, I missed,
Blinds,
because those just make it look better when it goes to the market. And then buyers will say like, oh, there's no blinds, there's no curtains. Shit, they're smart. They're like, oh, I gotta put those in.
That's a huge investment.
So that's something like for rehab costs that you should think about again at the beginning, so they don't become the might as well, because they're not might as wells. Door handles, fixtures, hinges, the door stoppers that prevent the door from banging the wall.
Yeah.
All that little stuff you want to make sure you've got calculated into your bid down to the littlest things.
Right.
because those are not mine as well. So those are things a buyer will look at and be like, that's gonna cost me money.
Yeah.
If you've got a bad driveway, all right, is that gonna impact your sale? Because of the roof. If something's probably, I think rule of thumb, if you can see that a roof's gonna last at least 5 years and it's clear as day, you're probably fine.
Yeah.
You just say, roof's got a good 5 years. People are like, all right, 5 years, whatever, I'll start saving money.
Yeah.
Right?
I can live with that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was gonna add there when it comes to so rehab costs, I think rehab costs, it's really looking at a room and going, oh, cover plates, light switches, outlets, we need to change those. Even though you may not be doing electrical, but you got to take that into account. And another thing is pulling a permit. If you are making major changes, you need to pull a permit, you got to take into consideration now you are on the inspector's time frame. So that could, it goes into the holding costs, but make sure that if you're pulling permits, you're over exaggerating your holding time frame from start to finish.
So that is a great point. And this is why I reference Tarek a lot, because he goes over this stuff. He knows out there in California where he does like 90% of the stuff.
Right. Yep.
He knows which municipalities out in California, and it's ridiculous out there, but he knows some of the communities that take 3 months to get permits.
Yeah.
You have to factor that into your holding costs.
Right.
You have to factor that either into your holding costs or your rehab costs, right?
Right.
So know which communities, like in Wisconsin here, I know which building inspectors I can get to quickly. Or if I don't, if I've never flipped property in Caledonia, Wisconsin. All right, first of all, in more rural areas like Wisconsin, is it the county? Do they have a third party inspector? So you want to know those timelines,
Right.
things like that. Even go and estimate what your permit costs will be.
Right.
I can tell you Lake Geneva is going to be different than Racine.
Yep.
Or Milwaukee. They're not all created equal.
Yeah. And, talking about that too is when, if you're not doing a lot of the work yourself and you're hiring it out, having that conversation with your vendor saying, okay, Brad, you're installing flooring. How long out are you? And Brad goes, well, I'm 6 months out before I can install flooring. And you're like, well, I don't want to hold this for another 6 months.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
Or you got a plumber coming in, he's 3 months out. Well, but the bathroom guy can do the full bathroom remodel after the plumber comes in 2 months. Well, now you got to make sure your timelines align to get the project done. Otherwise, you could be sitting on your hands just spending money that you don't have because it's someone else's right now.
Your contractor relationship is super important.
Yeah.
Once you get a contractor or two is recommended, because they all get busy at different times.
Right.
They can only handle so much workload. I always appreciate the ones that we were like, Brad, I'm 4 months out. So
yeah,
go elsewhere on this one. Sorry, buddy. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. Guess what? I'm coming right back to them first because I know they're going to say next project. They're like, yeah, I can get it done in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. Perfect. That's my timeline.
Yeah. So, when you're going through rehab, make sure what you're doing is adding value, right? We don't want to add a sauna to a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house because what kind of value is that? Who the hell is going to want a sauna in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house? Unless it's a lake house in Lake Geneva and on Lake Como or Delavan that people are like, oh, I just got off the water. I'm going to go sit in the sauna for an hour, right?
Specialty feature homes, and specialty feature would be pool, lake, maybe an association of some type with a common area pool. Those are all going to be variables of things that you want to think about.
Yeah. And then, one of the things when we talk about rehab costs, I think Brad mentioned earlier, is working with that agent to help you understand what is going to add value in the comps in that area. If you're looking in, say, Wheatland, Wisconsin, that's going to be a little bit different than if you're looking in the city of Lake Geneva, right? So what's going to add value to that area? And then, kind of to wrap where we're going next is renting that property out.
So
I would go ahead.
On just keeping with the cost, because that's obviously we're going to wrap up today. We're going to hit the rental thing next week. But to answer another thing from the beginning is like, what are some things people don't ever forget to do?
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Yeah,
just miscellaneous extra expenses. Whatever your bids all come out to be, add 10 to 15%.
I agree. And I always say, 10 to 15% to the whole project, including your holding costs, everything, 10 to 15%. So if you're saying it's gonna be a $10,000 remodel, it's actually an $11,000 remodel.
Always at 10%.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
And I'd say I'm glad you used a lower number.
Because you're about to bust out the calculator.
Well, if you use a lower number, so if you got a project you're little, it's only gonna cost you 10 grand. Honestly, I'd probably add another couple thousand. I'd
Yeah.
go 20%.
Yeah.
Because it's just the lower number, and with construction, it's like
One material can change that.
like one what would be really considered a small electrical change could be $300.
Yeah.
You do that with plumbing, you do this and that, all of a sudden, crap, there's $2,000. So, and here's going back to your margins thing. This is why I think that $30,000 number, that $50,000, 10%, what you want to do with the percentage, whatever it is. All right, so if you've got budgeted, and this is why a lot of times the professionals won't go below 30 grand. Because now they factor in that 10 to 20% or whatever it is that they could go over. All of a sudden, your profits could go quickly from 30 down to 10.
Yeah.
And 10 is an acceptable number for these bigger ones. For these smaller ones that only do a handful a year, that need that 30%.
Yeah.
Roughly. Now if you're off 10% on your costs, well, now maybe you're gonna get 20% margin. Well, 20% margin on a $300,000 after value on 210 all in.
It's a lot better.
It's still gonna be at least 60 grand, 50 grand.
Yeah, it looks good. Looks good. But going back to holding costs, we'll tie up with holding costs, and I'm gonna go into a little bit on holding costs and rentals to kind of segue into next week. But holding costs, don't forget to factor in like if there's HOAs, if there's transfer fees for the HOA, your electric, your water, all those utilities that people are like, oh, kind of forgot it, kind of didn't budget for I guess I gotta have power on. It's a big deal. And then the other thing too, people forget about is if they're demoing a place, how in the hell are they getting rid of the materials? Like, don't forget your dumpster. That's a holding cost.
Yeah.
So it's the small things like that.
So we have costs or it's a holding costs. Either way, you've got to factor all those little things. And for anybody who wants to get in, we'll go through this stuff, that's another thing a good solid agent. I know we do. I've got a calculator that basically calculates everything. And you can list out your budgets and then it gives you your estimated holding costs and you can literally estimate your profit. There's a lot of
calculators out there like that.
We have one.
But going into, just to segue into renting, we'll take off with renting. Part of the BRRRR method is renting. Keep in mind, not all governing, municipalities, cities, townships, counties will allow you to do different rentals. So, if you're going in, keep in mind that you might not be able to do a short-term rental in the city of Lake Geneva. City of Lake Geneva only allows you a short-term rental for 6 months. The other 6 months you have to do, I think it's more than a month at a time. Might be more than 3 months, but it's more than just 7 days. So keep that in mind, that could potentially change your holding cost as well. So because your holding cost, if you don't have that income coming in, now you're screwed.
And we'll get into this more next week, but in your those different types of rentals, there's different costs in them.
Exactly. So next week we we'll finish the BRRRR method with rent, refinance, and repeats. Vince Duval with Eagle Homes, powered by EXP.
I'm Brad BRRRR. I'm also with EXP with Eagle Homes. Have a great week, everybody.
See you later.